My next guest points out that there is a big difference in the philosophies of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and that the recently expired NSA bulk data collection program is going to add a huge roadblock in efforts to prevent future attacks here at home. I want to bring in former U.S. Attorney General John Ashcroft. Mr. Ashcroft, good to have you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you.
So
good morning.
You're worried about this metadata program ending and the ability for law enforcement to actually track terrorists.
Well, you've got to be able to follow the dots, and knowing the contact points that individuals who are involved in trying to destroy our country, knowing who they've been talking to. The metadata program is not a program for content of calls, but abandoning that tool in the toolbox in the war against terror, I believe, is a mistake. And we can't begin to deny the existence of the threat of terror and as a result disarm by taking tools out of the box one at a time. We need to use the full range of tools. That's why it's important when there is an act of terror that we characterize it as terrorism. If you delay in making it a terror investigation, you forfeit some of the tools which are only available legally when the investigation is an investigation of terror.
Yeah. So how do you explain basically us missing these two terrorists in the first place? I mean, Malik, the wife, who apparently now we know from law enforcement was an operative when she entered the country in 2014 on this fiancé visa, you know, she's been posting things, he's been posting things on Facebook, this rhetoric that, you know, Islam will run the world and that Israel needs to, you know, get off of the face of the earth. How did we miss that when, in fact, the metadata program was in place?
Well, the metadata does not consider the content of calls or the content of things that are on the internet. Metadata is simply the addresses or phone numbers that were called. So it's one of those things that can provide what we refer to as link analysis. It is important for us, however, to have a special screen that relates to individuals coming into the United States from communities or countries that have sponsored terror. And we need to make sure that we don't relax in this respect. I think the program that we had shortly after 9/11, which provided for an intense screen and the registration of individuals from terrorist-sponsored countries, has been relaxed. And frankly, the terrorist community is intergenerational. They don't quit after 30 minutes or an hour or a week or a year or a decade. They think that whatever we don't do, our grandchildren will do. Too often in America, we think everything's solved in the next hour, and if we want to call it over and we want to relax. We're going to have to avoid relaxation here. We're going to have to pursue with intensity those individuals who seek to destroy us.
Yeah, you know, I think it's interesting when you look at this couple, Farouk and Malik, because he was apparently associated with Al-Qaeda. She was pledging her allegiance to ISIS. And you've noted differences in the two groups. Didn't ISIS come out of Al-Qaeda? I mean, when the U.S. pulled out of Iraq, ISIS got stronger. And now ISIS, even though it came out of Al-Qaeda, basically gained more prominence than the mothership, than Al-Qaeda.
Well, ISIS is a philosophy that wants to reinstitute a governance structure that is 7th or 8th century. It's more than 1,000 years old. And they believe that any Muslim that is moderate or even recognizes the existence of a civil government rather than the theocratic government is an apostate. And that's the reason ISIS has been attacking moderate Muslims. Tens of thousands of moderate Muslims have been killed. And we should understand that our job is to maximize our defense and minimize our enemies. And if we try to alienate all the Muslims in the world, that's silly. They are under attack from ISIS, and they should understand, and we should promote an understanding that we should work together against a group that considers them a threat, and that we know, when I say them, moderate Muslims, they are a target of the ISIS movement. That was not the same, that's not an identical position with the position of Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
And our understanding of this new threat is important to our not minimizing our friends, but maximizing our friends, enlisting them, and minimizing our enemies, isolating ISIS.
Yeah, I think this is a really important point, and I'm glad you brought up moderate Muslims, because, you know, there are many people that have joined us, that are friends, that you would expect to have heard from. Do you find it surprising that we're not hearing from the leadership of the Muslim community? I'm talking about moderate Muslims. I mean, are you surprised that we're not hearing them come out and denounce ISIS? I mean, where are they?
Well, there are some, but there are far too few. I'm not only surprised, I'm shocked, and I regret it deeply.
Me too.
As they understand, and as thousands and thousands of more moderate Muslims are being attacked and killed by ISIS, which is seeking to destroy governments around the world because they are secular governments or because they are not totally theocratic. You know, those who believe in making agreements, even making a treaty with a known country is an offense for ISIS. They believe that makes you an apostate and you're eligible for decapitation, you're eligible to be the victim of terror. And we need to understand, and I would hope that modern Muslims that have a level of moderation about their approach, yeah, would understand this and join with us. We need to promote making our defense as large as possible and making our enemy as small as possible.
Real quick on the money angle here, is there anything that we should be gleaning from the fact that, you know, Farouk took out a loan, he got money from this online lender? What's your take on that, and whether or not there was some way for law enforcement to have gotten ahead of that?
Well, I don't really know all the details of this situation, but I do know this, that it's part of the tradecraft of these individuals who are going to extinguish themselves in an assault against freedom and an assault against America and an assault against the people with human dignity around the world. They build up their debts knowing that when they extinguish themselves, they won't have to pay it back. And lenders ought to have a real self-interest in not providing loans to people who have that proclivity.
Right. Mr. Attorney General, good to have you on the program today. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Former U.S. Attorney General there, John Ashcroft, joining us. And the